Hello everyone, today we're back with a gorgeous pattern. Say hello to Maeve. This coat is incredible, it's reversible, you can wear it 1,000 different ways and it just looks so unique. If you were looking for a pattern to sew for this fall or winter, this is the perfect one, so let's get started. I also wanted to remind you that you can custom order any of our designs through the link you can find on the description of the video. This pattern comes in sizes 32 to 50 and it's made for more intermediate or experienced sewists. You can print it in A0, A4 or US letter format. In this case, I'll be using US letter. If you have Adobe Acrobat or if you download it, it's completely free by the way. You can turn on or off any layers or sizes you want. In this case, I'm leaving on size 36 and printing as I normally would. As soon as you have your pattern pieces printed out, we're going to start assembling the pattern. The first 2 pages are mostly info about the pattern. And for the first row of the pattern, we have to trim off the left edges of the papers, just like this. And you're going to use the markings on the sides of the paper to assemble the rows together. This is my first row. For the second row and all the other ones, we're going to trim off the top and left edge. Once they're all together, you can start assembling the rows like this. Once your pattern is completely ready and glued together, you're going to cut off all of your pattern pieces. And you should have these pattern pieces. It's time to cut the fabric. I'll be using 2 main fabrics, this first one in this beautiful olive green color, and I'll also be using this striped cotton, which matches with the first fabric I showed you. I'll be using this fabric layout recommended to cut all of the pattern pieces. After cutting everything, we have to mark the notches on the fabric, so you just trim a little bit on each notch. Remember, most of the pattern pieces have notches, so make sure to go over every pattern piece until you finish cutting all of the notches. You'll also find excess like this, which means they are buttons, so make sure to also mark them on the right side of the fabric. The buttons on the front pieces should only be on one side on both main fabrics. The other side of the pattern should have the buttonholes and the pocket, just like this one. And for the rest, remember to mark all notches and markings. You'll also find buttonholes, so make sure to mark those on the right side of the fabric. And for the back main piece, you're going to transfer these markings. Now it's time to grab some interfacing, and we're going to iron strips of fusible interfacing on the wrong side of both fronts, right where the buttonholes will go. And you're also going to use the collar stand, collar pocket strap, and sleeve strap patterns to cut pieces of fusible interfacing and iron it on the wrong side of the fabric. On the main pockets, we're going to cover the entrance like this with 5 cm wide fusible interfacing strips. Now you're going to grab one lining pocket and the corresponding main pocket, and you're going to face them right sides together like this, and you're going to stitch leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. Then you're going to press or move the seam onto the lining. Once you've done that, you're going to match them right sides together just like this. Make sure to pin it in place, and you're going to stitch all around the sides I'm going to show you, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. But you're going to leave an opening about 5 cm wide on the bottom of the pocket. This is so we can flip it inside out later. Before actually flipping it inside out, make sure to trim the corners and then press the pocket properly. Now we're going to top stitch about 2.5 centimeters from the opening, just like this. I made a line so it was easier for me to know where I was sewing. And right now you should have 2 pockets. Remember, one should be using fabric 1 and the other one fabric 2. And now it's time to attach the buttons on the front. Grab your collar/pocket straps and face them right sides together and sew on the edges I'm showing you. Remember, you need to leave a 1 cm seam allowance. For the sleeve straps, you're going to match fabric 1 and fabric 2, and you're going to sew all around, leaving once again an opening of about 5 centimeters. This is also so we can flip it inside out. Make sure to trim the corners of all of these pieces, and then you can flip them inside out and press. Once they're all pressed, you can now make the buttonholes that we marked earlier. So if you don't really see them now, make sure to make another marking before it washes off completely. And after making the buttonholes, you can top stitch all around each of the pieces. So for the pocket and collar straps, just sew about 7 millimeters from the edge. Grab your panel where you marked the pocket and buttonholes for fabric number 1 and grab the matching pocket. You're going to place it in place like this, pin it in place, and we're going to top stitch, leaving the opening without sewing. You're going to repeat this for the other front panel from fabric number 2. Grab one of the pocket straps and place them right over this marking over here, and we're going to top stitch to secure it in place. Then you're going to fold it over as if you were closing the pocket, press it, and then we're going to top stitch over again. And this is how your pocket should look like once you close it. Grab your back panel and open it up with the right side facing up, and grab your front panels. you're going to match them on the shoulders. Remember, we have notches as guides over there, and you're going to pin the shoulders in place. You're going to stitch leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. After that, you're going to move the seam allowance towards the back panel, and you're going to top stitch about 7 millimeters from the edge. Grab the corresponding sleeve panels, and remember that we have a front of the sleeve and the back of the sleeve. So make sure you take that into account when pinning them in place. Here I'm attaching first this side. Remember, we also have notches on the bodice panels and on the sleeves. So after you pin it in place, you can sew leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Since this is a curved seam allowance, make sure to make some cuts so that when we press the seam towards the bodice, it looks a little bit nicer. We're also going to top stitch over the seam and over the bodice. Once you've done that, you're going to match the sides like this. Remember that we have notches and seams that help us as a guide, and you're going to pin everything in place. You're going to stitch the sides, leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you're done doing that, remember to press the seam allowance towards the back panel. You're going to repeat this with the other fabric panel as well. Now you're going to insert the bodice of fabric 1 into the bodice of fabric number 2. Remember that the right sides should be facing each other. Once I did that, I made sure to pin everything in place really neatly. And we're going to start stitching from over here, down the center front, then down the bottom of the coat until I reach the other side, then up again the center front, and then on the neckline. You're going to leave a 1 centimeter seam allowance for all of these. Now go to the neckline, and right here when we sewed in the corner, we're going to cut a small triangle just so that when we flip it inside out, the fabric lays properly. And now you can flip it inside out. Make sure to take your time while pressing. We want the coat to look as nice as possible. As you can see, I've made a marking over here that's 5.5 centimeters from the edge. And we're going to make one all around the back and on the other side as well. This is just so you know where to top stitch, but we're going to start stitching from the neckline, and down the line to be made until we reach the other side. So first follow the neckline, and then you can just stitch over the line. When you reach the other neckline, flip your presser foot and sew about 7 millimeters from the neckline, and up again until you reach the other corner. Now it's time to finish off the sleeves. What I like to do is to pull out the sleeve from the inside and face its right side with the seam of the other panel, just like this. And you can pin that in place. You could honestly just use one pin right now, but I like placing two. And right between both bodice panels, you're going to pull out both sleeves, and they're going to look like this. And now you can finish pinning everything in place so you can stitch all around the sleeves. You're going to leave a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once they're ready, you're going to make the same top stitch that we did for the rest of the coat. Here I measured the 5 centimeters and a half, and I'm going to do the same on the other side so I can top stitch. Next, grab a hand needle and some thread, and you're going to grab the shoulder points on both bodices, just like this. So make sure they're in place, and you're going to stitch them together. You're going to repeat this on both underarm points as well. Moving on to the neckline, we're going to secure them together by aligning the seams and markings and sewing about 5 millimeters from the edge. Moving on towards the back panels, we're going to match each marking line of one back, so from fabric 1, with the corresponding line of the other fabric, in this case fabric 2. And we're going to make some basting stitches. I used red thread so you can see it better, but you could use whatever color thread you'd like. After doing that, you're going to fold the back by the middle and match the marking lines we did. Pin it in place, and then we're going to sew over that line. After sewing the line, you can just remove the basting on both sides. So you can see this is how the back should be looking from one of the sides, and from the other one we have this pleat that we have to form properly. So just press it down like this and make sure to use your iron to really give it its shape. To secure this pleat in place, we're going to stitch over the shaped top stitch from one of the sides. Remember that what we stitch on this side will show on the other side as well. We're also going to secure the pleat at the neckline. Grab all of your collar pieces and your collar straps, and you're going to face the matching and corresponding collar strap with each collar, just like this. Then you'll have two collars that don't have a collar strap. These are you're going to match together, and you're going to match together the ones that have collar straps as well. You're going to sew all around these edges, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance, but without reaching the bottom edge at about 1.2 cm. Once you're done, you're going to trim off the corners, so when you flip it inside out, it presses nicely, and you should end up with both collar panels like this. And you're going to match them together just like this, and you're going to separate fabric 1 from fabric 2 and stitch that in place. Now you're going to match the collar and collar stand from fabric 1 with right sides together. You're going to sew leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. You're going to do this for both sides of the collar, so it should end up looking like this. And for that curved seam, make sure to cut some notches. After pressing, you're going to match the collar and the neckline from fabric 1 with right sides together. Remember, you have to align the seams and the notches from the collar. You're also going to leave a 1 cm seam allowance over here. After sewing, you're going to press the seam allowance into the collar, and then you're going to grab the collar from fabric 2, and you're going to fold the edge inward at about 1 cm and pin it to the neckline, so you're basically enclosing the seam allowance. You're going to sew all of the layers together with a top stitch. To finish off the collar, we're going to make a top stitch around the collar, leaving a 7 mm seam allowance. It's important that you remember that the top stitch should end right when it matches the bodice top stitch from step 14. We're almost done. We're now going to make the buttonholes on the front panel and attach the buttons everywhere we have markings. So on the front panel, the collar, the back, and the sleeves. You have to choose between attaching the buttons on the side of the fabric 1 or fabric 2. In my case, I decided to attach them to fabric 2. Now it's time to make the cape. You're going to match the capes with the wrong sides together. And using a contrasting thread, in this case I'm going to be using a red thread, you're going to baste all of the edges at about 2.2 centimeters from the edge. I first marked the lines using fabric chalk so I knew where to baste. And this is how it looks after basting. Now you're going to trim off the excess from one of the layers. You can decide whichever one you like. And we're going to fold the outer layer 1 centimeter in and sew. You're going to do this all around the cape. Once you're done with that, you're going to fold the edge 1 centimeter again and sew all over again all around. After stitching, you can just go ahead and remove the basting and press your cape. And the last step would be to make the buttonholes on the back. This would be the buttonholes for the smaller buttons. And you're finally done with the gorgeous Maeve coat. I'm so in love with how this turned out. The fun thing about this is that you can wear it on both sides with the cape or without the cape, and you just have endless possibilities of styling. Remember that if you'd like to custom order any of our patterns or designs, you can check out our link on the description below.